Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, the next phase. Yeah, no, we're not doing DS9 yet. It's in the future. It's still TNG, but this is the next phase on It's All Been Checked Before. Speaking of the next phase of It's All Been Done Radio Hour, this Saturday at Boxland Media. Go there, get your tickets, enjoy the show in person. Get all the. It's like if you're a Patreon member, patreon.com/IBD. Come on, you can see us. Go see these guys at Boxland Media. Go see It's All Been Done Radio Hour there. You will not regret it. It's a fun Saturday, and it kicks off your night. Hopefully, we're kicking off your night here with the next phase on It's All Been Trekked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
I'm Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We're here to talk about the next phase. An episode I remembered very well before I watched it.
Huh.
I've seen it a few times, and I remembered it extremely well. First impressions.
Well, I mean, that reminds me of last week as well. These two episodes in a row, I do remember having seen when they were on, but it was just so vague in most places. I feel like I will have enjoyed it more than either of you, perhaps. So we'll see.
I think you're right.
I'm a sucker for things like this in general, but there are some things to pick at, I'm sure. So
yeah, I definitely didn't hate it, and I thought the name of it should have been the next episode. So just chill. I wrote down, this is some Tholian Web nonsense going on here. And it really is. I mean, and I guess maybe they were throwing shout outs to TOS, but essentially, you know, to go back to Tholian Web, we all remember the Tholian Web and how great the actual web was. The episode's okay, I think, for TOS. I think it's season 3. For season 3, it's decent. Go back and listen to what I said before. I'm probably contradicting old me. Young me. I'm contradicting young me. But anyway.
Recency bias.
Yeah, not only is there phasing going on, and it's with two people, but it's also a chance for people to talk about how important this other person was to them. So in the Tholian Web, it's Kirk and Spock's relationship gets tighter, dealing with the loss of Kirk, the loss of Jim, and then there's other people reacting. You know, he shows up in. What a surprise. He shows up in Uhura's quarters, even though he's in another phase. You know, and here we get Ro and Geordi to get kind of their relationship builds. And I did like that part of it just as much as I like the way Spock and McCoy got closer to that other one. I felt all along, I'm like, we're going to get another fake funeral or a fake funeral here. And we kind of did. But I felt like everybody talking about, oh, I remember meeting Geordi, or I remember when Ro first came on board. None of them had the punch as much as the Kirk Spock thing, which is a different thing, which is unfair to throw on them because Ro's a minor character, obviously, at this point. But just to go back to Tholian Web one more time, we'll get on with this episode. But I don't know if you guys remember in Tholian Web, Kirk has left a video message for those guys. Essentially, like, if you're reading, essentially the classic, if you're reading this, I'm dead. If you're watching,
it's like the Yar hologram.
Yeah. So, and I read, and maybe we covered this before, or maybe not, but apparently that was one of the first, that was an inspiration for video wills to become a thing. That was one of the first uses of that as a device in some kind of television or movie. And it actually, after that, became a more common device and a more common thing in real life. So once again, Star Trek leading the way in death.
I have not made a video will. I'm going to go ahead and make it right now in the middle of this. If you're seeing this, I'm dead, or you're a Patreon donor. Either way.
I think that Steven inadvertently sold me on some other things about the episode. I mean, I think it could also be seen as a positive. They didn't lay it on too thick. It's like they know we as the audience aren't going to buy this for the most part. We're not going to kill Geordi and Ro here. We don't need to see the characters get super deep about it on something that we know isn't going to be real. So, you know.
That's true. We lose the suspense right at the beginning that it's not real. But
yeah.
That being said, I have issues with this episode. I don't think it's the worst episode by any means, but it's definitely not the best either.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And obviously in episodic television, especially back then, you know those guys are going to make it probably. I guess in theory, Ro might not have made it, but you know they're coming back, and it's just a matter of, okay, how are they going to make it back? And there was kind of a science aspect to it or whatever, which was similar to Tholian Web. But yeah, I wish there'd actually, and then I know you just mentioned Skip, but I wish there'd been more of a payoff with some of those other recollections. So
no, that's another good point. I mean, there was a missed opportunity for more deep character reveals or something, or more backstory could have been revealed.
Keith, you'll appreciate this. This is Michelle Forbes' 7th of 9 appearances in The Next Generation.
Yes.
Ro's 6th of 8, because remember her first appearance was not as Ro. So she'll be in one episode early next season, like episode 7 of next season. So it'll be a little while. And then she's in one of the last episodes of the series.
And just so you know, that episode's called Goodbye Ro, just so you won't be surprised.
No, it's not. It's called Preemptive Strike. She's in Rascals and then Preemptive Strike.
I may be wrong, but I think that is an anagram for Goodbye Ro.
Probably, even though there's a lot of letters that would not match up. But if you translate it into Bajoran, it's an anagram.
That's how they did it.
So, yeah, the beginning, this also makes me sad because we don't get that much of Ro. And I'm like, this is Ro, we're getting of Ro. Okay, whatever. She's still smarmy, but at the beginning to remind us, like, here's the smarmy character that doesn't respect rules and regulations. But I don't know if you caught it. As she's mouthing off to Riker and gets on the transporter platform, Worf is smiling at her, highly amused by her mouth.
I didn't catch it.
I appreciated that very much. I'm assuming that's just Michael Dorn enjoying the scene, but...
Well, and we're reminded once again that scrambling molecules across space is tricky, as McCoy always says.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous. It's insane.
I guess.
But why didn't they just, this is a common complaint of mine, why didn't they just go back and find another transporter record of them and just beam that in? Problem solved. But, many problems with this episode. But see, that if they could do that, then nobody would ever die. But that's not, apparently there needs to be some live aspect of it to work. Or I guess that version, well, yeah, we've talked about it before, that in theory, every time they beam,
they murder.
One person gets killed and a new person is
regenerated.
Yeah.
But so their consciousness is beamed, and that's why it works. If they're dead, the consciousness isn't there. No, I don't know. So the woman working the transporter operator, because if this was O'Brien, this wouldn't have happened.
I wrote that.
Me too. Chief Brosmer, who is, we've had a lot of old ensigns, but she might be the oldest ensign we've had on the show, which is definitely like, that's why she should not be operating the transporter. That's why she's still an ensign, because every time she operates the transporter, she screws something up.
She's called ensign in quotation marks. She never actually achieved that rank. But
I knew right away. She's credited as chief, which is not. She's not chief of anything.
That's also in quotation marks.
That's more of a nickname right there. It's like, hey, chief.
Yeah, but I knew right away. I'm like, oh, something bad is going to happen. I knew.
Yeah, because it's not O'Brien.
Yeah, I knew.
Played by Shelby Leverington, best known for the movie The Island, which was a great movie with Ewan McGregor. Yeah. Second best known for this role. And then Dutch and Cloak and Dagger. She's got 52 credits.
Okay.
She was in this episode a lot more than I expected her to be. It almost makes me wonder if this was written for O'Brien and then they just had him like doing costume fittings for Deep Space Nine that day or something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why was she in the episode so much? But really, she should have been relieved of duty like early on and dismissed. But the work must go on. So even though these two crewmen die, they're like, Riker's like, okay, well, you got to send me another engineer because the ship's going to.
I'm not sure if it actually should be refreshing in retrospect, though I said it was at the time, is that they didn't waste any time debating over whether or not they should go help the Romulans. This is just sort of like a given. There's a distress call. We're going to go do this. We're up. Here we are. We're here to help. And there wasn't that kind of, there didn't seem to be that kind, the same kind of banter or subterfuge play or anything. At least not up front.
I was like, did I forget an episode, or maybe we're just jumping forward and at this point they're friends with the Romulans? Because
So I was bumping on that too, and it wasn't so much that they were offering to rescue that bothered me. It was the fact that the Romulans just let them on their ship and were super friendly to them. Which later we find out why they have a. I mean, they want the help, but they're also hiding things because they're Romulans, so of course they are.
Right.
And they also try to do something evil because they're Romulans, and of course they do. So it all makes sense in retrospect, but the first half of the episode, I'm like, why is this happening the way it's happening?
My other thought was, I recall there being some episode where the scientists were on board and they were kind of trying to be friendly. Like they weren't really I'm not saying this right. Do you remember the episode I'm talking about where there's some sort of envoy and it seemed like they were doing something diplomatic?
Oh, the Romulans?
Yeah. And they were still no, I'm thinking the Cardassians.
Yes, I know the Cardassian episode you're talking about.
All right.
When Gul Dukat had the facial hair.
It's hard to keep up with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the first things I enjoyed about the episode is they were trying to like reject that core and they had to do it manually, and then they can't get that door closed and Data comes over. He's like, "Excuse me."
I feel like that.
Good use of Data. Data should always beam over to closed doors.
Yes.
Ro wakes up in a hallway and there's just people walking past her, which right away you're like, yeah, something's wrong if they're walking past her and not saying anything. Why does she go to sickbay though?
Maybe
Knowing
they're scared of her.
Ro the way we know, she doesn't have any like obvious injuries.
Right.
She would go to the bridge, not sickbay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought, it's just super cheesy because, I mean, I feel like we all knew right away, like, oh, they're not going to see her, or at least I did. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then, like, I feel like we should have had that moment where their hand passes through something or whatever a lot sooner. But they were going out of their way to be like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. But you still don't see me. It's like, just touch them. Why would you just shove somebody?
But as is so often the case on these types of stories, she can go through computers and walls and everything just fine, but she doesn't fall through the floor.
I wrote that down too.
Noted it. I'm just so.
And when I was reading up on it, there are a lot of people. There's a lot of people. There's a couple of different Reddit threads of like, what's the deal? And I never watched this show, but I hear it's good. Stargate SG-1, in one of their episodes, they mocked this episode for that specifically. So.
They should have all just fallen straight out into space like the Romulan.
Yeah.
Data calls. Speaking of the Romulan, real quick, when he goes out into space, he immediately dies because he's in the vacuum of space. I know we're getting ahead, but yeah,
did they show him dying?
It seemed pretty obvious when we saw his body floating in space. He was dead. Maybe it's just because he wasn't. He was stiff. He wasn't like flailing or anything. But so they're out of phase. But are they still dependent on the oxygen in the ship? Even though that's like in the other phase? And
right. I thought that too. Like.
That's where that stuff all falls apart for me.
Yeah, I was also thinking I also noted gravity too, and I don't know.
Yeah. Data calls Geordi his best friend. When he's talking about Geordi being dead. I wanted Geordi to be like, yeah, he's like my fifth best friend.
I did too.
First is Hugh. Second is hologram Leah Brahms.
He was third of his five friends.
And I thought LeVar Burton gave like a pause, enough of a beat there, like, yeah, he was. That it was like, okay, I'll accept it. Sure. Yeah. You know what, buddy? That's cool. As long as you think I'm your best friend, that's cool.
I was going to say earlier in Ro's defense, I think if you woke up passed out in the hallway, you should probably at least stop by sickbay to see why that might have happened. So there's some of that.
Whenever I pass out in the hallway, I'm usually pretty sure the why. I'm not sure. No, or the how. I'm not sure I got to the hallway, but I'm pretty sure why I got to the hallway.
Keith, I think a lot of officers would go to sickbay to find out why you passed out in the hallway. I think Ro is somebody that's just going to tough it out and go to the bridge.
True.
Personality-wise. The Geordi Ro hand touch was weird, but thankfully we now have good Geordi, because if this was Geordi from a season or two or more ago, he would have been like, we're the only ones here. We might as well just do it.
Oh.
I thought about that too. And I like at the end when they're finally like getting closer, they're about to come back and they kind of hold hands or grab hands. So it's kind of that, a stressful situation, and only being the only two kind of brings you closer together. And so, like I said, that was one of the aspects of the episode I did enjoy, was those two getting closer together, becoming tighter.
But I also kind of like that they didn't go romantic with it.
I did too. That's the other thing I thought. It's like, oh,
it was like, are they? No, okay, that's fine. Don't do it. I don't.
What did we think about Ro just being convinced? Like, no, I'm dead. We're dead.
Now, see that. I think that was one of the interesting aspects, because we get into her religious beliefs a little bit. Yeah. Although I like Geordi's argument against it. You think there'd be a blind ghost with clothes, but which make But yeah, I think the Bajorn people are very religious, and it's something we'll get into a lot more on Deep Space Nine. And she doesn't call out the prophets by name, which seemed a little odd for me, because on Deep Space Nine they're always talking about their gods, the prophets. But Yeah, I totally bought that, and I appreciated that perspective.
Yeah.
I wanted to explore it further.
Yeah, I thought it was really dark, or maybe not necessarily dark, but I thought it was very much like, yeah, I accept that. I got it.
My note about both of those things was I enjoyed that we got 2 Geordi episodes in a row where he was serving the purpose of puzzle solving, and it feels like his personality is really solid now. He's got that kind of
it was about halfway through the season,
sardonic edge to him, and kind of
Yeah.
But halfway through the season, Geordi finally became a good character. It took 4.5 seasons, but I'm pretty sure he stays a good character after this.
Yeah.
It just took so long for them to find that character.
And also Ro being needed to give another purpose for what was going on there, which is, as you were saying, the characterization. It was a useful thing for her, and probably also leading into Deep Space Nine, as I hadn't really thought about until you mentioned it that way.
She was supposed to go on Deep Space Nine, and she declined. Right. So
yeah. When Worf talked about he was happy for Geordi or whatever because he passed on, is he supposed to do the or whatever for a friend, or is it only for Klingons?
I think you do that over the body because the soul's coming.
Right. So he didn't have a body.
This was after the fact. Yeah, I enjoyed that whole scene where Worf and Data discuss human and Betazoid different customs than the Klingons.
That was a good scene too.
Yeah, the good species. Before that, Ro goes up to the bridge and she touches her chair lovingly, and then touches the panel. And I'm like, I thought she couldn't touch things.
Right.
She's just very good at pantomiming. She was just like right on it. It was like
I call bull.
I also
you don't think she could be good at it? And she's.
I also don't think Ro would give a crap about her seat or her console on the bridge. That was not what she would hold on to. She would go and touch Riker.
Riker's little Riker.
Yes, that is exactly what.
I mean, what this episode was missing was the scene where she goes and watches Riker shower, because you know that happened.
Standards and practices. I mean, we just assume.
Sure. Well, my alternate episode is Home Alone in Space, which to me means Ro and Geordi are like, we're invisible to everyone else. Let's get crazy. And they do all that kind of stuff. And like,
what are they doing though? Because they can't touch anything.
Well, they're just looking at her. They're just voyeurs.
They're just looking.
They're just looking at everything.
They go watch everybody have sex. All the married couples, all the
yeah.
I mean, that's what old Geordi would have done.
Yeah.
You just expanded on the joke that I was thinking of when you said that, though. I mean, essentially, there was a point during the episode where they confirmed the places they'd been by saying, "Here's where the concentrations of the particles were, the chronotons." So I was like, "Oh," and also in Riker's shower for some reason.
Yes.
They could have listed.
And then at the end, when Riker's like, "Wait a second, there were chronotons in my shower," and then it ended up being Geordi and not Ro. So my alternate episode was also a '90s movie. I was thinking, what if you're invisible? And of course, they'd run into the locker rooms and they'd have the gratuitous topless scene and all of that, because that's what the '90s movies would have been.
Yep.
More 80s than the 90s, I think.
Even more 80s.
This was early 90s, though.
Yeah, they certainly hadn't outgrown it that far.
Yeah. We're still at the end of that era.
I do like the idea of them coming up with an elaborate prank in my Home Alone scenario, and then they go to do it, and then they realize they can't touch anything.
That would be fun.
A whole montage, 5 minutes of them planning and scheming and figuring it out, and then
yeah, but they couldn't write anything down or use any computers, so the planning and scheming would be rough. Like it would just be them in various poses. It wouldn't be them actually doing anything.
Geordi might have had an instrument with him or something, maybe. I don't know.
Because the Romulan had the disruptor. Yeah.
Their uniform stays with them, so at least there's that.
Yeah. No pockets, though, right? I don't know. Do they?
Well, they rip the uniform in pieces and tie the headband around. And, yeah.
No, but I mean, for him to have carried over like a tool belt or something.
Yeah, he wasn't. He didn't have a tool belt on him for some reason. Yeah. Riker knew LaForge longer than any of them, apparently, Picard said. So Riker and LaForge have backstory pre-series that we don't know about. Where's that Imzadi book?
Yeah.
But I like that Riker wanted to talk about Ro, because I think we're calling back to, when they lost their memories and that relationship. I really wish we had more than 2 more episodes of Ro so we could actually explore that.
Yeah, and I wish he'd gotten more than just 5 seconds to talk about it.
If Ro had been a main character that was here for the 7 seasons. I think they could have really gone there with Riker and Ro, and they would have never gone back to Riker and Troy because that would have made a lot of sense as a couple.
Yeah, yeah. I want to hang out with those guys. Well, you know what? I'll hang out with Riker and Troy too, but the Riker and Ro, I really want to hang out.
I'll hang out with Ro anytime.
The joke was almost worth it for me.
Geordi?
I was just saying that the joke was almost worth it for me, the buildup of that. Of Ro not getting to hear it, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, that was great. It was like, yeah, I loved that. It was almost like he knew she was there and he was teasing her. It was so good.
And trombone. Just
wah, 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 wah. When Ro goes into Picard's office and she's like talking to him and he can't hear her, obviously, and all that, Geordi comes in and he says, "Excuse me, Captain," to Picard, and then he turns to talk to Ro. And I did not see that as a weakness. I saw that as like habit, and I loved it.
Yeah, it made sense. It was very fun.
Did you notice when they go back to the Romulan ship and they're investigating, Geordi puts his head inside panels to look?
Yes. What?
would there be light enough to do that?
I wouldn't think so. I don't think so because it's a completely closed panel. I mean, he can see the various energies.
His visor phase too.
He can see the various energies inside of it. Yeah, his visor phase, just like the disruptor phase. It would be a very different episode if the technology didn't phase with them, because then he wouldn't be able to see the whole episode. Mm-hmm. They talk about an interphase generator, which is why when it says, oh, it was a problem with the cloaking device on IMDb, that's not true because it was this interphase generator. But my question about the interphase generator is, it worked this well already. Why does it never get finished and we don't see it in later Star Trek? Because wow, that's one of those godlike technologies, the kind of like Discovery's the jump drive that you have to take that out of the timeline, because I really wish at the end there was some techno babble that explained why this would never work realistically, because otherwise you're just like, well, the Romulans will have this perfected next year.
Well, they already blew something up, so we can it's probably too volatile and they just never got there. Maybe they kept getting into worse accidents.
It was at this point of the episode that I wrote, Romulans are evil. It makes sense again, because we hear them talking about plotting to blow up the Enterprise.
Wait, wait a second. Do the Romulans know how well it worked? I mean,
no,
because the Romulan that phased is off in space somewhere. So,
but they'd still keep working on the technology and finish it.
Did you guys?
The Romulan that phased. This is when they revealed it, which was really late in the episode to reveal it, and I had forgotten about that. I was like, "Whoa, that's cool."
It took me a little while, but at some point I was like, "Oh yeah, that guy," because he was sitting there so weirdly, like I'm just sitting here not helping, and then it did hit me. It hit me before he came out as phased or whatever. I was like, "Oh, that guy's with them." But anyway.
No, I didn't get that. That was until he revealed himself.
Yeah.
When Geordi's teasing Data and engineering, that was really good. But I kept thinking, like, can't you just run and spell your name, like in the corridor, so they can track the phases and be like, oh, it's Geordi? Or just keep repeating the number 3, because apparently that'll make Data figure everything out.
Oh my God, that would have been a great callback. Yeah, Data would have been like, Hugh?
I really thought Geordi was not doing a good job of trying to get Data's attention, and he could have done much better at sending a message.
I wonder if that would work precisely enough for, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I was thinking about that. Like, I don't know if it would be precisely enough, like if he wrote with his finger on the panel, but I think you've got a whole ship and he could run through walls. He could spell out a giant message and it would work fine. Perhaps.
I think it depends on I guess it depends on how the information is being represented. They never actually show us a map, do they?
No, but I'm saying, like, he could just go into certain rooms to spell the letter, you know? He's not confined by the walls, so he could just make it really big.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if they're looking at, like, if they're doing like a top-down representation, they can, or is that what you're saying? Like they're seeing a letter from...
Yeah,
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if they're looking at it in that way, or if it's.
I mean, Data was tracking them all. I'm sure in his head he's mapping it all out.
That's
because they were looking for patterns. They were looking for the explanation on these things. When they were doing the chase through all the things, we got the girl in the towel, of course, which was my raunchy 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
But then they did the guy doing push-ups for gender equality. And then the dinner with the couple was just hilarious.
Yeah, I guess this is my whole episode I wanted was just them going through
more goofy antics.
Orders, yeah.
Yeah, we find out Picard requested Geordi because of the shuttle thing. That was a nice little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
Although at that time, Geordi wasn't even like an engineer. He was just a red-shirted officer on the bridge. But whatever. We'll forget about that. Well, the death party was kind of fun. And Riker with the trombone.
I wrote, it's another pseudo funeral. And that may be unfair to TNG, but I feel like we had a few of these. And we talked about how much we know how much Seth MacFarlane loves TNG because he created an entire show called The Orville.
Yeah.
And he's had them on Family Guy and all that.
At the party, there were blue balloons. What was up with that? Like little light blue balloons. I got the band. It was a New Orleans style funeral,
sure.
but the balloons didn't make any sense to me.
It was a weird funeral party.
It was like, oh, these balloons left over from the baby shower last week.
A gender reveal of some sort.
It's what Geordi and Ro would have wanted.
I knew as Ro was shooting all over 10 forward, I knew before she did it, she was going to shoot Riker.
Oh, yeah.
That was just, of course, she's going to shoot Riker. So they set the disruptor to overload, and then they hide behind a table that is out of phase with them and offers no protection, and they're completely fine.
Didn't even occur to me.
They needed to run to the other side of the ship.
Yeah, it's ironic that because I like that they figured it out science-wise, but there's no science in this. There's no consistent science in this episode.
No! I mean, seriously, that's almost as bad as them not falling through floors because you're like, okay, well, you got to take that for granted because then there's no story whatsoever. But being in the same room with nothing to block them but hiding as if something was blocking them.
Well, and I guess to that point, I guess they could have been floating the whole time, But
yeah, sure. But they didn't have the budget for that.
That I read that they thought they had a whole plan of we're not going to spend any money on this, and then they realized, oh crap, with all this phasing and stuff, people going through bodies and walls, they ended up spending a ton of money. But I read two different things. Either they were nominated or they won an Emmy for sound mixing for this episode. And I'm guessing it's because every time they passed through a body or a wall, it made it sound like. But is that what would happen if you were phasing? I guess it is what would happen. Or was that just so we knew that they were passing through a body that it made that?
I think that was for us. I mean, it would have to be. It might sound like that to from their perspective, the phased person.
Phase, yeah.
But
so
maybe.
Hey, they won an Emmy or got nominated or both. Well, if they won, they got nominated. So they either got nominated or they got nominated and they won. So either way, good job.
So the ghost thing was kind of cool where they saw them and then they disappeared again. I liked that. But
which was very also Tholian Web. They kept thinking, oh, we saw Kirk, and they're like, Captain, and then he disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked and this is kind of ridiculous, but I like the who gave that order moment when Geordi calls down the engineering.
Yes.
They're like, Geordi LaForge did. Listen to him. And Data got left out of the emotional moment, and they got a little special exchange. Mm-hmm. But once more, we have a big event in 10 forward, and Guinan's nowhere to be seen.
Yep.
I know that's Whoopi's availability, but you just can't have big events in 10 forward when she's not there.
Yeah, I mean, sure, she has to have a night off here and there, but come on.
At the end, Ro questions her religious beliefs, but why? Because nothing that happened would actually go into playing their religious beliefs.
Good point.
Yeah, you'll be dead soon enough, Ro. Like I said, at the beginning of the episode, I'm like, Romulans, Ro, I'm in. Then you're talking about the cloaking device, which, again, you guys know I love Romulans. I love the cloaking device. The Enterprise incident. Balance of Terror, of course. They say they're going to deface themselves, which sounds dirty. But I think it'll be okay. I think we're clean here. My last note is, I think Ro says this. My people used to call them Borets or Borats. And I was like, my wife. I thought it was very interesting.
I don't know.
I did not look up the spelling or anything because I just wanted to use my wife.
Yeah, I just thought the ending should have been foreboding instead of a laugh line because, as I mentioned, there's this technology out there that they can't stop.
Right.
That can be really dangerous.
Which, again, I think it tells you they're like, this is just a one-off. We don't have much. It's episode 25 of the 5th season or 24. Mm-hmm. Let's just rework Tholian Web. and give Michelle Forbes and LeVar a little more to do, which I'm fine with that part of it.
This was directed by David Carson, written by Ron D. Moore. David Carson will direct the movie Star Trek Generations, as well as a bunch of other Trek stuff. He's directed Yesterday's Enterprise, Redemption Part 2, The Enemy. We do have some guest stars here we didn't talk about. We talked about Chief Brosmer, but the Romulans were played by, and I don't know which one was which, but Thomas Capacci, Susanna Thompson, Brian Cousins. Thomas Capacci looks very familiar if you look him up. He's best known for Catch Me If You Can and Leaving Las Vegas, No Country for Old Men, Star Trek Generations. Apparently he's in that as well. He played the Assistant Secretary of State in West Wing. He's done a bunch of episodes of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver as a cowboy. 138 IMDb credits. He was in an episode of The Tick. He did 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine, a different character, but the same character in both episodes of DS9. Episode of Voyager. He's in the movie Star Trek Generations. He will play another character in another episode of Next Gen. Very familiar looking guy. Susanna Thompson will play the Borg Queen in Star Trek Voyager. Yeah. So that she may also know her as Oliver Queen's mother on the television show Arrow.
Oh my God.
Also known for Once and Again, Dragonfly, Malignant. And again, she only got 55 credits. I thought she'd have more because she's familiar. NCIS, Timeless, a bunch of stuff. No Seinfeld, but yeah, her main Trek credit is Borg Queen in 3 episodes of Star Trek Voyager. Yeah. She'll also play an episode of DS9, and again, she'll play another character in another episode Next Gen coming up. And then Brian Cousins is best known for Next Gen. He's in 3 episodes of Next Gen. This one, and then he's in Descent Part 1 and 2 as a different character, but the same character in both of those episodes. Okay. So that'll be our season finale, season 6 going into season 7. He's also in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise as a different character. He was in No Ordinary Family, the television show, VIP, Invisible, The Chronicles, episode Desperate Housewives. So they got pretty well-known actors for this episode and people that they keep bringing back. Mm-hmm. No kids in this episode, but who was your annoyance?
The transporter, Chief Ensign, whatever her name was.
Chief Bosmer.
Yeah, she was not helpful at all. She was helpful in bungling things, but
yeah, I'm going with her too. O'Brien needed to not take a day off.
I wish it'd been like they made it comedic, like she was a Inspector Clouseau or whatever. Transporter, Chief Transporter Clouseau, but yeah,
I don't have one. I can't think of one. It's
come up with it.
The Romulans.
No, I was thinking one of the Romulans.
Which one?
The one that man.
There's the guy who was playing an instrument next to Riker, who clearly did not look like he was actually playing the instrument. I found him annoying as well, but
that would have been a good one if I'd seen it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm gonna go with one of the plan making Romulans. One of the ones with the we were saying sabotage them or something.
Romulan that says sabotage.
I don't say sabotage. I say sabotage.
Who are we having a drink with?
Guys, I'm going to out myself. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out who the blonde was in the towel. I say that with shame and no shame, but I landed on Ro because I want to find out why she wants to be dead so badly.
Oh, you're going to have the drink with Ro? I thought you were going with the blonde. I had already written Ro, and then I was changing it to blonde with a towel for you.
Sorry. Yeah, I couldn't justify it.
Yeah, I mean, Ro's my go-to whenever she's in it because she's interesting, but I want to hear more about her beliefs and stuff. Yeah. And what the experience was like thinking you're dead and all that. And did she check in on me while I was showering? I'm sure she didn't, but I wouldn't be mad if she did.
Geordi, for similar reasons, would have wanted to talk about why he didn't fall through the floor, other possible strategies for spelling out messages or things like that.
Yeah, he was. If the transport chief had been so bad, he would have been my annoyance for why he didn't come up with a better way to get a message to Data. Ranking the episode. Let's see here. This season has a lot of great episodes, so we're going to start relatively low. But
so, between 1 and 2, I think split up those.
Let's start with Power play. Better or worse than power play?
On the power play.
I think I enjoyed this better, but
I'd go above.
I would go below, but obviously I'm outvoted. So
I'd say it's pretty close, but
I would say that
above.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in the right area. Yeah.
Next one up is hero worship. That's when the kid copies data.
I mean, it's. I would go
Ironically-
above, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, ironically, I think I'll go above.
Okay. Yeah, I get into those situations too.
Yeah.
Above that is Silicon Avatar.
Ooh,
I think below. Maybe.
I was gonna go above. We'll leave it up to Jimmy.
Yay.
No, I'm torn.
This is the first time ever, maybe.
Yeah, you guys, I'm usually quicker.
My favorite thing about Silicon Avatar is that the woman from the nose job episode of Seinfeld is in it. That's my biggest memory of it.
I'm going to go above just because Silicon Avatar, the crystal entity always annoys me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Violations is the one above it. That's where the mind rapes happen.
Oh, I'm above on that one, actually.
I think I am too.
I'll go above. I started with the second to last one. The only one I didn't ask you about was Imaginary Friend at the bottom. But I assumed we'd all go above Imaginary Friend. That one was real bad. But I'd say above Violations is a matter of time. That's the future guy. Matt Frewer comes back. But he's really from the past.
Below.
I'm going to say below too.
Yes.
Okay. We finally got below. This one's 6 up from the bottom.
Okay.
I honestly thought we'd rank it a little lower, but that's fine. That's fine. I think pretty much anything above this is actually pretty good. This was a strong season. So we're just below all the good episodes. Next week, speaking of good episodes, one of the episodes that's considered one of the best, like even better than Borg, is a 9.5 out of 10 ranking on IMDb. The Inner Light. Picard awakes to find himself living in a small village where he's a well-known member of the community who's suffering from the delusion of being a starship captain. All of the Next Gen so far has been the delusions of a madman. Picard's actually a simple farmer.
So it's the Paradise Syndrome, but set in a village.
That reminds me of something, but I know
apparently a lot better is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's considered very, very good.
Yeah.
So one of if not the best episode of Next Gen. I don't think I've seen this one, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, wow.
We're gonna get together and do it off of Zoom.
Oh, that's right.
Live and in person. We're gonna do that, and then we'll do the season finale live and in person while we're at it. So we got the Inner Light and Time Zero. I would say part 1 because it is part 1, but of course they don't put part 1 on their season finales. Time Zero 2 is the season premiere, but we're going to watch Inner Light and Time Zero. But Inner Light next week. Until then, live long.
And just chill to the next episode. And prosper.
The next phase.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?
Oh, my hand just went through the computer.
Why aren't you falling through your chair?